Welcome to tonight's candidate forum for candidates on the November 8th ballot seeking the presiding commissioner for Cole County seat. I'm Gary Castor, editor of the Jefferson City News Tribune, and I'll serve as moderator of tonight's forum. I want to take this opportunity to thank the city for use of these council chambers for the forum, as well as their assistance in live streaming it. Some of our audience is watching this forum in person, some of them through our website. Seated next to me is Lane Strassner, our community engagement editor. She will serve as timekeeper for the forum tonight. Two candidates are seeking this seat. Let me share with you the background of the candidates. To my left is incumbent presiding commissioner Sam Bushman. He's a Republican and has held his seat for almost a decade, having sought office after several decades as the owner of Samuel's Tuxedos in downtown Jefferson City. He's worked with several organizations in the community, including the Downtown Association, Lincoln University, and the Navy and National Guard. He is a native of Jefferson City. To my right is Carla Malone Steck, a Democrat. She's an artist.
Excuse me.
An independent, I'm sorry. Thank you. An independent. She's an artist and graphic designer known for her art pieces around the community. She has experience running an arts-based nonprofit and service with the Army National Guard, has served as a visiting professor for local universities, and is a past treasurer of the Cole County Historical Society. She has also organized acclaimed local arts festivals. Prior to tonight, the candidates were advised the rules of the forum. They were told they would be provided an opportunity for an opening statement, a round of questions, and then a closing statement. None of the questions were shared with the candidates beforehand. During the course of the forum, I may ask a candidate a follow-up question in hopes of getting a clearer understanding of his or her stance. A candidate may also be granted time to respond or to rebut an answer from a previous question. So before the forum, we drew lots to determine who would go first. Sam Bushman will give the opening statement, and we'll start with him.
I am Sam Bushman. I had served 2 terms, and I would like to serve a 3rd term. We've got lots of projects moving ahead, and I would like to see them completed. We've got a new EMS station going on the corner of Adams and East McCarty, and we should break ground on that early next year. We've got the multimodal spur out on Algoa Road, which is going to be a big help to a lot of our industries out that way. And then we're starting to work on a dedicated 911 center, which will make it much more efficient to dispatch our emergency vehicles. So I just ask privilege of serving another term.
All right, thank you. Carla.
Greetings, voters. I'm an independent candidate, and it took quite a bit to get here. I could have paid $100 like Sam and become a Republican overnight. However, to become an independent, you have to go through a process, a petition process. So 28,000 votes in the 2020 election. That requires 2% of that number, so 561 signatures to get on the ballot. I collected about 700, and then the adjudication process occurs at the clerk's office. It should be a very objective rather than subjective process, but I did lose some of my close friends and relatives during that process. But I want to encourage everybody to get out there and start their own party, perhaps.
All right. Well, let's get started with our questions then. So we'll start with Carla. Carla, what would be your top 3 priorities if you're elected presiding commissioner in November?
So let me start very simply with how meetings are run currently with the county commissioners. The idea of our First Amendment has been pushed to the side. So I think 1 hour a week with the commissioners is a very important time for the public to have comments. I think that this is our only time, really, to visit with all three at the same time. I think that the contracts that the commissioners are in charge of and signing should be public information. It's very difficult to acquire that information unless it's a sunshine application. The other important thing that I would do is economic development seems to have very little respect for our youth. I think that we're talking about $6 million to incarcerate children at the Pringer Center. I would rather see quite a bit of that money put into programs that prevent violence. The programs that I do with at-risk youth have the opportunity to have a healthy expression of their emotions rather than a violent expression. So we need to put more into our youth when we consider economic development. And I'll end with that.
All right. Sam, same question.
Well, I'd like to answer hers about economic development and the Pringer Center. You know, that was built in the 20th century, and we have a different bunch of young people today than we did back in the 20th century. And now we have to keep the 17-year-olds there as well. But we try to work with them. Boys and Girls Club tries to work with them. Building Community Bridges tries to work with them. But our Pringer Center is antiquated and does not serve its purpose any longer. So I think one of the things we're looking at is perhaps building a new juvenile detention center.
So would you identify that as one of the top 3 priorities to the question that I'm asking?
Can you ask the question again?
Sure. The question was, what would be your top 3 priorities if you're re-elected presiding commissioner?
I want to see the county keep moving ahead. And I think, we've got so many things, public works, we do so much there. Our health department does so much. So I want to just keep moving forward. I don't want to fall backwards. I want us to really take care of the people of Cole County.
Okay. So next question, we'll start with Sam. Sam, what's the biggest need that's facing the county in the near future? One need.
Well, I think we're in a recession. I don't care what you call it. So looking at the cost of everything has gone sky high, if you can get it. We've been waiting on doors for the jail now for over a year. And then we got a thing where they're made in Czechoslovakia, so God knows when we're going to get those. We've got generators that are on order, which we won't get until next spring again. But then we also have to pay our employees a salary that they deserve. And we have some very good people working for us. A lot of them at Public Works, this is the only job they've had since they started. So I want to keep our employees, and I want to take care of them, and we need to just keep moving forward. But 2023 is going to be a very interesting year, just with the cost of goods and everything else.
Okay. Carla, same question.
Go ahead with the question.
What is the biggest need facing the county in the near future?
So if we think about finances, I would like to see we the people considered more in decision-making when it comes to finances and how the money is spent. Falling back on that first question that I answered, and I talked about open meetings, I think that, furniture for social distancing has a lower priority to me than programs with youth. So I think opening up to a greater audience is a huge need when it comes to how we, the people's money, is spent.
Okay. Next question. Carla, what's the biggest opportunity facing the county?
The biggest opportunity? You know, I come from an agriculture background. I think that we've forgotten locally about the ag industry, even though it is our biggest industry. I think we can capitalize that on more occasions, especially when we think of the recent past with high prices of meat. The local farmer was still selling hamburger and things like that for $4 a pound. Now we had the bottleneck at the larger industry packing places. So Sam might have paid $9 a pound, I'm not sure. But I think there are industries such as ag, and there's arts, of course, that people that come to visit, when they're looking at a museum, they usually have a larger pocketbook than a sports event. But I think Jeff City is very strong, Cole County is very strong in our educational institutions with sports, but we have forgotten about the young talent that we want to retain here in Cole County and investing in them.
So take under 30 seconds and just give me a better idea maybe of what specifically, how the opportunity would manifest itself with arts or agriculture. Choose one of them so that I have a clear idea of what that opportunity is other than you're embracing those.
I should talk about the arts since I'm an artist, but the first thing that comes to mind is, you know, when tragedy hits, if we were prepared agriculturally with, you know, folks that have established gardens, more of a direct link to our farmers, we'd be so well prepared. We wouldn't have to worry about what might happen from a federal level to our community. So I think the lesser magistrate, which is the commissioners, you know, if they show leadership and prepare our community for such events, we're going to be really good.
Okay. Sam, same question. What's the biggest opportunity facing the county?
Well, agriculture is the biggest in Cole County and in the state of Missouri. We're an agricultural state. So we're constantly working on our roads, improving our roads. Tanner Bridge Road, we got a $2.5 million grant to build a new bridge at Tanner Bridge Road. And so we're going to end up spending, I think, about $108,000 to build this bridge. We are concerned about the roads going out to our farming communities and our communities. So, you know, that is important too. Same time, you know, our jail's full. We built a new jail, it's full. We're housing prisoners in other counties. You know, you have to kind of to look at everything. So yes, you've got agriculture, you've got everything else that goes on within a governmental body. And so there's a lot more. And I was an art major as well. So just so you know.
I'm more advanced.
I think we'll go to our next question. So Jefferson City, this will be for Sam. Jefferson City and Cole County have a housing issue, specifically a workforce housing issue. What role, if any, does the county have in addressing the issue?
The county commission, all three commissioners, endorsed these housing developments. And I think, you know, when they say, well, it's for low income, that's kind of deceiving. That's what the grants are for. But these are going to be 2- and 3-bedroom apartments that are to house the workforce. So, you know, the one out east, those people can work at Scholastic, they can work at Command Web, they can work at all those. We need housing. We do not, the tornado destroyed a lot of the housing. And when we were doing the census, the count was down in Jefferson City. I think we grew 200 people in 10 years. The people that lived in those houses, I think, are still here. But if we want to grow, we've got to have housing to hire people to work at Scholastic and Quaker Window, and they're housing them now in a motel, I think, in Holt Summit, and busing them to Quaker. We don't have the housing.
Okay. Carla, same question.
So you're asking what is the housing issues?
No. So what role, if any, does the county have in addressing the housing issue?
Okay, so currently they seem a bit standoffish when it comes to the subject. And I tend to agree with Sam on his response here. We have to get over the hurdle of preconceived notions about this type of housing. I think that, definitely budgeting upkeep and making sure the maintenance is provided long-term. You look back to St. Louis and Ferguson and the housing developments there where the husband was not allowed in, the families disintegrated, but there was no plan for future upkeep and maintenance, so things went down. So I'd say, it's very important to get the subject in a large forum and discussed.
Okay.
Can I enhance
No.
that? Just, the developers that are building these are local developers. So they're not gonna build these and walk away. And these are 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. They're made for families. And one of the issues we're gonna run into there is, as we get the families there, is a question of childcare, which is another question. But these are local developers who are gonna be here. They're not building these and walking away.
So I'll have to respond then. So I didn't necessarily mean that the developer was walking away, but the county commission needs to make their budget appropriate to maintenance in the future. Because I have been attending some of the commission meetings where, they'll come in and they forgot to put it in their budget, and so an extra 15,000 is easily acquired. I just think that, the future planning for the housing is very important. I don't doubt the developers will be here.
Okay, let's go to our next question. Start with Carla. How would you assess the relationship between Jefferson City and the county? How might it be improved?
Well, I have an example that 10 years ago or more, I helped a mayor establish the Arts Commission. I had a program that had ranked 2nd in the state called Art Inside the Park. And it was receiving funds from the city and from the county. After the commission was set up, people were selected that had not any historical reference. They had no idea that this program existed and it had been receiving funding. The county stayed on with the program for a while. Sam got in office and I think the funding did end during your term. But this relationship was established so that people outside the city could be on the commission and that they would work together, because regional development is critical when it comes to, a county and a city. We're really looking at a wider area. So how does it work right now? I guess I'm saying that they haven't really put forth effort on one subject that I'm aware of that has had great success. But I don't see anybody being negative towards each other, so I just don't know that they have it formulated yet.
Okay. Sam, same question.
Well, I think we're working probably closer together than we have in quite a while. and this dedicated 911 center is kind of a question and point, because right now I have dispatchers out at EMS and we have dispatchers in the basement of the jail. We want to combine those two, so when a call comes in, an ambulance is dispatched much quicker. So we've gone and looked at Boone County's dedicated 911, which Boone County actually runs, and that can not only save us money, but it can actually save lives, because 30 seconds that it takes to send it out there. But like the half-cent sales tax that has gone on for 30-some years, we combine the money there to do projects in the city. And so, again, we're taking $5.5 million from us, $5.5 million from the city. We're putting it together. We can do a lot more things with $11 million. So I think we are starting to work much, much better. We're going to allocate some money for the fire tower, which has outlived its usefulness. And our district fire departments can use that as well. So we have a lot of mutual aid. We have a lot of things we can do together, and we can both save money.
All right. Let's go to our next question. Along those same lines, looking at the smaller towns within the county, how would you assess the county's relationships with them? And what current small town needs do you think need to be addressed? And we'll start with Sam.
We give them, out of our portion of the sales tax that comes in, we will give them like $500,000, and that might have gone up a little bit since then, for them to use on road projects and things like that. And, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but if you're a smaller town, you can pave roads, you can do all different things. We're looking at our ARPA monies too. And again, we're applying what we can to those communities to help them, because, they don't have the sales tax revenue coming in. They don't have, there's a lot of things they don't have that Jefferson City has. And Jefferson City is actually part of Cole County too. So, but we try to help them as much as we can, and our public works works with them. Our sheriff's department, our deputies are out there, and we have a very good relationship with our communities.
Carla, same question.
So I'm not sure why Mr. Bushman refers to it as them. It's my understanding they are Cole County. So Russellville, Cole County, St. Martin's, Cole County, Eugene, why are we even segregating this? Am I misunderstanding the question?
Yeah, the question did not have anything to do with that. So the question was, we talked about the relationship, first of all, previously about the Jeff City county relationship. Now we're talking about the smaller communities and the county. So what current small towns do you think need to be addressed, and how do you think the county commission interacts with the small towns, is the point of the question.
Yes, and so I'll go back to what I said. It's one body. Those small towns are one body, but we have a CVB that ignores these events on their calendar. We still don't have really a community calendar that everybody can go to and say there's an engine show in Russellville and there's a fall festival here. So I think some of those type things are essential to coordinate. I think that, of course, we've got ag in all of those communities, and so what are we doing to benefit every person in Cole County?
So to clarify, first of all, CVB is not a county organization, so I'm not certain where you're going with that.
Convention and Visitors Bureau should be worked with if they're Jeff City and Cole County. Cole County should have a calendar that reflects everything that the Convention and Visitors Bureau has. We should encourage that calendar. We don't have a calendar. Do you have a calendar, Sam? Cole County Commission?
I have a very big calendar that lists all kinds of things.
So when I go to the commission meetings, they'll talk about where they're going that week, but why don't we project it up and put it out for the public to know? I mean, you know, we see it afterwards where you've been. It's important to let people know where you're going, and so we can go too.
So, candidates, I'll remind you, part of the ground rules were
Oh, don't
not
talk to each other?
interaction between each other, all right? While I appreciate the spirit of it, it can turn nasty. So let's just focus on the questions, okay? So we're going to go to our next one. So Carla, we'll start with you. How would you grade the county's road and bridge systems, and where do you think the critical needs are that should be addressed currently?
So it's interesting. I don't think my opponent has built a county road on his own. I did, however, back in 2000, build a county road, and it was quite daunting to be up to specifications. So I do understand, you know, when you see the green sign, what it means and what a blue sign means. Many people that purchase land have no idea what that means. They don't realize that they're going to have upkeep on that road, that they buy a parcel to build their home on, or if they're not going to have upkeep on that road. So Public Works is one of two places within the county that the commissioners manage. The other is the Cole County Health Department. And the current director of Public Works is an engineer, and I think things have gone more positive since he's been in place. Prior to that, there's been some issues. I hear plenty of complaints, though, from people who have gravel roads and want them upgraded, and seem to have a disconnect with the commissioners on when, how, what do we do to get that upgraded. So, you know, I have great faith in Eric Landwehr currently, so I think that you know, if the commissioners are out looking at the roads and the bridges and working with Eric closely, that we'll have a good outcome.
Sam, same question.
Yes, I have never built a road, but I know that when we overlay a road, it is $78,000 a mile to overlay that road. And I think when I came on, we do traffic counts. So at one time, it was 150 cars a day would warrant blacktopping that road. Then we blacktopped all those roads, so we took it down to 125 cars a day, and we blacktopped those. And I think it's probably 100 cars a day now. But we have probably 600 miles of road in Cole County, and I would say 80% of those are blacktop. You go to some of these smaller counties like Osage, they don't have the budgets that we do. So other than the state roads, maintained roads, their roads are gravel. So I think we have done a good job with our road system, and we do a great job on snow removal. You know, I think I'm really proud of our Public Works Department.
All right. Let's go to our next question. What are the Sam, this will be for you. What are the biggest issues facing the county's public safety system, fire, sheriff, EMS, and how would you try to address those needs?
Well, I think, you know, we have a really good sheriff, and so we had to increase salaries because we were losing deputies to other counties and other entities as well. So there again, to keep good trained people, it costs money. And I'll tell you, we went through 3 EMS chiefs before we found a really good one we brought in from South Dakota. And he is building up our EMS, the new station. We're going to add on, we're putting ambulances out in Wardsville, and we're going to build a bigger station out there, because from Wardsville we can go to Taos, Osage Bend, and St. Thomas very quickly. So, and our chiefs now, especially on this 911 dedicated, they're all working together. So the sheriff, Chief Hoy, they're working with Chief Schofield and Chief Wilde, and we're working together better than we ever have. Plus, we also have mutual aid. So if something happens and we need more fire engines, we send them. I know when they had a car that ran off in Miller County, I was surprised to see Jefferson City fire trucks out there, but they had the water rescue units. So mutual aid is very, very important. And again, I'm probably over time, but after the tornado, I was so amazed when I got downtown and we had law enforcement from Fulton, we had law enforcement from all over. We had public works. About 10 minutes after the tornado, I had a call from Pettis County going, what do you want? You want fire trucks? You want public works? I said ambulances. I figured we were going to have a lot of casualties. But we had such a big group that came in to help us after the tornado very quickly. So mutual aid's good.
Okay. Carla, same question.
Well, you're talking about three of the most important territories of the county is sheriff. You know, he's our highest law enforcement. The fire, of course, is essential. And when I think about EMS, I do have one concern, and this comes again back to public meetings and public comment and sharing our concerns with the three commissioners. And, you know, our First Amendment is there for a reason. Some of us are very positive about the vaccination. Some of us are hesitant. And so when they're starting to purchase blood at a couple meetings ago, there was no conversation about, you know, the shelf life of the blood, or is the blood, you know, vaccinated blood. You know, more particular things concern me with each of these departments. You know, going to the sheriff's department, the programs with those youth, again, you know, adults can benefit too, so can mental health. But I just think that's our foundation, you know, even above roads and bridges, although we have to have those to get there.
So the question was, what are the biggest issues facing those three foundational areas that
And
you
I
mentioned?
gave you my main concern, which was EMS and, you know, the purchase of large volumes of blood and the public comment not being accepted as part of those meetings and finding out what the public actually thinks about some of these decisions.
Okay.
So I'm looking at it in a different way than
And how would you address those issues was the second part of the question.
with allowing the public to have more input in the decision-making process that the commissioners take. I mean, we have public meetings for a reason, but if they've cut off public comment and sometimes don't allow you on the agenda, there's no way to interact with we the people.
Okay. Let's go to our next question. Carla, how would you address the needs for space or facilities for county government? What areas does the county need to address in the near future and why?
So we have a lot of vacant buildings in our community. Everyone that is currently concerned with space, they do believe that it almost always needs to be downtown. I think that there's other buildings that can be used that are vacant. Again, because I can't get the information that I've been requesting from the county commissioners, even with a sunshine request, I don't know exactly what is needed with space, but I would say that we have lots of vacant buildings, and why are we just focused on one area of town?
Okay. Sam, same question.
Okay, would you repeat that again, please?
Sure. How would you address the needs for space or facilities for county government? What areas does the county need to address in the near future and why?
Well, you know, our courthouse was built in the 19th century, and at that time, it housed all of our county offices. the county commission, they were judges, called judges back then, only met once a month. So did the circuit courts. They only met once a month. So you had recorder, you had all of them in that one building. You know, now we have 5 judges. We have a backlog of trials because of COVID. And so we're having some visiting judges come in. We don't have enough courtrooms. The courthouse is, you know, the ADA accessible is marginal. It's, but we need more courtroom space. And see, that's an interesting thing because the judges, the circuit clerk, they are actually state employees. So we provide the courtrooms, we provide their offices, but that's about all we do. But we still need more courtrooms. So,
I'll have to comment on that since I
Don't-
can watch
don't
it for a
interrupt.
minute.
Don't
but you know,
interrupt, please.
we're just looking at other options. We took a jury room and made that into a hearing room for Judge Green. It's pathetic. So we are out of space in some areas.
Okay. Carla, you wanted to say something?
Yes, so there was a issue recently with a elected official that wanted to speak at the commissioners' meeting, and the unfortunate thing that our Commissioner Bushman did was took him off the agenda. But because I was there, I learned what had occurred, and another commissioner had put him back on. And this statute that was referenced makes it very clear that the county commissioners are in charge of determining when an audit should occur. My opponent sidestepped that by taking the elected official off the agenda. And so, again, it's very important that we, the people, know what's going on. That's our one opportunity, an hour a week. But anyway, it
Carla,
is the
let me
commissioner's
interrupt
responsibility.
you for a minute.
Yes.
That's not germane to the question that I asked. And
No, I'm commenting on his.
this form does not allow you the opportunity to comment to question.
Oh, okay.
If you were refuting something he said, then we would allow that.
Yes, refuting is the word I
But this was
should have
about the
used.
use of the county buildings, not about the procedures of the commission. You may certainly address that in your closing statements, but we're going to get back on track here,
Yeah,
okay?
I was refuting a comment.
So our next question would be, start with Sam. How would you assess how the county responded to the pandemic? What did we do well? What should we have done differently?
You know, we have never experienced anything like COVID. And so when it hit, we immediately created our emergency operations center. And we had the police, the fire, the hospitals, the schools, everybody met because we really had never had anything like this happen again. We were getting direction from the CDC, we were getting direction from DHSS, and so we basically kind of followed that on you know, their requirements for us, you know, to shut down, to do everything. I know it affected my business by hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we just had never experienced it. So we were looking at the counts, and we had on Monday we had Zoom meetings with our hospitals and our medical partners, and the numbers of people that were in our hospitals was really scary. Every 2 weeks we would meet with the schools, the superintendents, and again talk to them about what they were doing. We bought Chromebooks. We bought a lot of Chromebooks for the schools to do, you know, learning, and it was something we had never experienced before. So we when things loosened up a little, we did not mandate masks. We allowed each business to decide what they wanted to do. We allowed each township to decide how they wanted to do it. And we gave vaccinations to people that wanted vaccinations. But I think overall, we did a very good job of addressing something we had never experienced before.
All right. Carla, same question.
Okay, I guess this is where I would think of the county commissioners as a lesser magistrate, and I would want them to protect my constitutional rights. When the federal government comes in and is telling our local government, you know, you'll get on the record if you have more vaccines, and so when we refer to being a leader during COVID, that is what my opponent is referring to, how many vaccines were pushed. So the lesser magistrate, which is the county commission, they're not an administrative state. They have the power to protect our constitutional rights. And so living outside the city, you know, the thing that Sam said, there was no mandate on masks. However, our hospitals did have mandates. I cut my finger off during this. What's that?
That's not us.
Again, let's,
So anyway, personal experience, went to the hospital with a cut off finger, and I couldn't be seen if I didn't put a mask on, even though Judge Green had just that day said and ruled that there would be no demands for masks. So I think that it's just really important that our commissioners protect our constitutional rights in any endeavor.
so to clarify, during that time, businesses could, they could go beyond what the county had said. So they could ask that people coming into their businesses wear masks.
So you're clarifying what he said, or
No,
what are
I'm
you
clarifying-
your question?
I'm clarifying, having covered this during the pandemic,
Okay, so
I'm clarifying that is what
is there a
occurred.
question for me?
No.
Okay.
Next question. So this comes from a reader. Why do you think Cole, and this will start with Carla, why do you think Cole and Boone counties have similar numbers of people who have died of COVID when Boone County has over 2.5 times more people?
Repeat that one more time.
Why do you think Cole and Boone counties have similar numbers of people who have died of COVID when Boone County has over 2.5 times more people?
So I do a lot of research, and that does include alternative media sources. So there is some evidence now that the hospitals have made a profit off of COVID, and so the determination of whether this person with cancer died of cancer or of COVID, you know, these numbers are questionable, is what I would say, whether it's Columbia or Cole County. You got your numbers where?
This was from a reader, and we actually had a story about this.
So the
a few
reader
weeks
gave
ago.
you the numbers?
The reader gave me the question that they're asking of you too, asking your thoughts as to why you believe this occurred.
Yeah, so I don't know that it occurred for sure,
Okay.
but I am letting you know that unfortunately the RNs that I know that were working in the hospitals were very disappointed in how the death was written up. So I don't know where they got their numbers. I'd like to see the numbers, but comparing that they're the same is a non-issue.
Okay. Sam, same question.
Well, I actually agree with Carla. I think the numbers are kind of skewed. I know when they had the outbreak at Jeff City Manor, there were 3 older citizens who died, and one of our local doctors, who was a doctor for 2 of those, went on the local radio, and he said neither one of those 3 died of COVID. But I know, and I don't think it was a hospital, but I know if you had COVID and you were, say, 85 years old, and 6 months later you died of a heart attack or pneumonia, it was counted as COVID. So I think the numbers of deaths and everything like that are skewed, and I don't know who was doing it, but yeah.
Okay. So let's go to our closing statements. So we will start with Sam.
Well, I hope I have been a good steward of county money and taking care of the county over the last 8 years, and I hope that the citizens of Cole County will see fit to vote me to another term.
Carla.
Well, I wrote down this quote after I got up here, just so you'll know. Leadership is not being in charge. Leadership is taking care of those in your charge. Unfortunately, as a resident, having my land rights taken away became a battle to get those back. And, you know, there was a change in leadership, and transitions need to be better taken care of, obviously. But my closing statement is, do your research, go to some commission meetings, find out what's going on, and demand that they allow you your First Amendment right.
All right. On behalf of the News Tribune, I'd like to thank both of you for appearing tonight for this forum. In addition to stories about the forum in tomorrow's News Tribune, we'll also have a variety of other means by which you can become more informed about this race. We'll be asking the candidates questions that we didn't get to tonight, and those answers will appear in upcoming issues of the News Tribune. You can still, if you're listening, you can still submit questions for the candidates by sending us an email to vote@newstribune.com. So I would encourage you to take advantage of these resources and then get out and vote on November 8th. Thank you. So at this point, we're going to take about a 5 or 10 minute break to prepare for our next forum, which will be for the 60th District. And we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Good job, Sam. Sorry, I didn't realize I was doing something inappropriate.
I was going to slap her hand, but
And I forgot, I was gonna say how much he looked like his yard sign.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, but you know, we couldn't wear memorabilia, but he looks just like his yard sign.
I don't have my picture on me. I have a tuxedo with a bow tie. You know, those I used back in 2014.
Oh, those signs?
Well, no, because I made the mistake then of putting elect me in 2014. So, but I just used the same and just took the 2014 off.
Oh, you tux.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Joe. Good. How are you doing? How are you? All righty. Ready?
In a few minutes.
Welcome to tonight's candidate forum for candidates on the November 8th ballot who are seeking to represent the 60th district in the Missouri House. I'm Gary Castor, editor of the Jefferson City News Tribune, and I'll serve as moderator of the forum. I want to take this opportunity again to thank the city for the use of the council chambers, as well as their assistance in live streaming it. Some of our audience is watching this forum in person, some through our website. Seated next to me is Lane Strassner, our community engagement editor, and she will serve as timekeeper for the forum. The two candidates seeking the seat are before me, and let me share with you the background of those candidates. To my right is incumbent Representative Dave Griffith, a Republican. He's a former U.S. Army Green Beret. He acted as executive director for the American Red Cross for 6 years. He served on the city council for Jefferson City and spent 23 years working for a television station in several roles. He is married to Leah. They have 2 children and 5 grandchildren. To my left is challenger Jadon Salcido. He's a Democrat, an 80-year-old retiree who spent his entire 40-year career in education as a teacher and as a National Education Association organizer. He's married and has 6 children, 9 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. Prior to tonight, the candidates were advised the rules of the forum. They were told they would be provided an opportunity for an opening statement, a round of questions, and then closing statements. None of the questions were shared with the candidates beforehand. During the course of this forum, I may ask a candidate a follow-up question in hopes of getting a clear understanding of his stance. A candidate may also be granted time to respond or to rebut an answer from a previous question. So we're going to get started with our forum tonight with an opening statement by Jadon Salcido.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the News Tribune and the City of Jefferson for giving me the opportunity to share my views on my positions. I'm a retired educator and a union organizer with the NEA affiliates. I've worked in 5 different states. The reason I filed for office is because as a student of history and a former history teacher, I really believe our democracy's in danger. The Republican majority that has been ruling Missouri for the last 2 decades, we see the results. Education is at the bottom of the rankings of all the states, along with health care, mental health, job growth, public safety, the list goes on. So if you elect me, I will try to answer these issues as best I can and overturn the Republican supermajority damage that they've done to our society. Thank you.
All right. Dave, your opening statement.
I'm Dave Griffith. I'm seeking my third term as a state representative in the 60th District. I think over the last 4 years that I've been in the House, I've gotten 12 bills that have crossed the finish line that address the needs and concerns of my constituents and those in the 60th District. I think that I'm very proud of the time that I've spent there. And I've got unfinished business in the House, and I'm seeking your vote on November the 8th.
All right. So let's get started with our questions. We'll start with Dave. This one comes from a reader. What will you do to increase spending on mental health services to reduce the risk of suicide among veterans and the general population?
It's a very good question, and I think that the interim committee that I had over the summer that I chaired on veterans, mental health, and suicide, we heard some very compelling stories, and I think that it needs resources that we can be able to provide. One thing that we found during that time was that the mental health department that we have in Missouri, the mental health department, we've got one person. John Sabala is the one person that is the veteran suicide prevention team. He's put together a veteran suicide team that goes out and can actually train people in communities where there's been a number of suicide deaths. We've got to address that, and the mental issues are forefront on those with PTSD, substance abuse, and being able to provide more resources to our mental health department in the form of FTEs is something that I think that we need to address, and something that has been talked about. I went to a seminar out at the National Guard, and during that seminar, we heard a story about a veteran. He actually was in the National Guard and also a police officer who committed suicide last November. His brother shared the testimony with us about what happened there. And that testimony was really very compelling, but it also showed me that what the military can do are some of the things the private sector can't do. The military can assign one person in a given area, in a platoon or a squad, that can be the suicide prevention officer. I'd like to look at ways that we can do that in the private sector. We've got Scholastic, we've got Maytag, we've got a lot of industry that's out there that have supervisors. And I think that we can find a partnership that we can have and learn from best practices of what our military has been doing, transfer those to the private sector, and start to make some headway in veteran suicide deaths. It's not just veterans alone. And my hope that was going to stem out of the hearings we have this summer is that's going to propel into the general session that we have next year, to where mental health can be looking at suicide in the rural community, looking at suicide in the construction industry, and really in every industry that we've got, and finding solutions and real life solutions that can be used by all.
All right. Thank you. J. Don, same question.
Same question.
Yes, sir.
First of all, put more money into the mental health department's budget would be a good step. Also, you might take a look at some of the laws that have been proven in other states to...
Hang on just a second. I don't think your microphone may be on.
Oh, good. Thank you.
There we go.
Some of the programs that have been proven successful in other states, like red flag laws, if you have a veteran who's a danger to themselves or to others, other states have found there seemed to be a correlation between removing access to the firearm from the veteran resulted in reduced deaths. Other states around Missouri have reduced veteran deaths than Missouri does. And Missouri doesn't have any of those gun safety laws, and I think they should. It would help us in providing safety for our children going to school. If we had background checks, if we implemented a lot of the gun safety laws. I don't mean taking guns away, although I will say I think we could do well with just having a ban on assault rifles. The first deer that I got, 6-point buck, I had a break, one shot is all you could, look through the scope. You don't need a weapon of war
to hunt with, and it's just plain, in my opinion, just plain nonsense to have weapons of war out on the street where anyone that wants one can have one. And I think that's in the wrong direction. And I'll work hard to implement gun safety laws if I'm elected to the legislature.
All right, let's go to our next question. Again, it comes from a reader. We'll start with Jay Don. Will you commit to fully funding Medicaid expansion this year, and explain your answer?
Well, if I was in the legislature, I would vote to fully fund Medicaid expansion. I think it's interesting to note that the Missouri GOP resisted implementing Medicaid expansion, even though it would help thousands of veterans, even though it would help thousands of Missourians, young, old, elderly. And now I understand, I read the newspaper this morning, I think there was an article in there that Missouri ranks one of the lowest in the states of enrolling people in Medicaid. So I think we can do a better job in administering Medicaid in Missouri. What we've seen in Missouri is that those states, red states, that refused to implement Medicaid expansion experienced rural hospitals closing up and going out of business. We saw that in a number of red states, including Missouri. So Medicaid expansion is a good program, and it should be implemented fully and funded fully.
All right, Dave, same question.
Well, I don't think we have any choice. I think we've been told by the courts that we have to have Medicaid expansion. We've got to be able to do it. Before the courts ruled, we have 1.6 million people that are on Medicaid right now. With the expansion of it, we looked at 230,000 additional people that were going to be being involved in the roles of Medicaid. One thing that we've got in Missouri is we have a balanced budget. And a balanced budget means that we can't overspend. We can't deficit spend. So if we're going to expand one program, we've got to look at where we're going to cut another program. And it's kind of like judging a baby contest. I mean, you're going to have winners and losers, and we have to pick winners and losers. But as far as Medicaid expansion goes, I don't think we have any choice but to look at it unless the law is changed. And right now, it doesn't appear that that's going to be the case. So we've got to find a way that we're going to be able to meet the roles of people that we've got that are enrolling in it, and do the best job we can with the money we have.
All right. Next question comes from a reader, and Dave, we'll start with you.
Okay.
Legislators have said there are too many constitutional amendments and attempted to make it more difficult for citizens to get measures on the ballot. It's easier for the legislature to add them, and 4 of the 5 proposed amendments are from them. Is this a double standard?
No, I don't really think so. I think that what we've been able to do in the House of Representatives and in the Senate as well is to look at what we feel like is best for everyone. One thing we did not address in this last session is an initiative petition. In the initiative petition process we have in the state of Missouri right now, if you have 450,000 signatures, you can change the Constitution of the United States of Missouri. And for me, if we're going to change the Constitution, we need to be very thoughtful about how we do that. And I think that in the House and in the Senate, we have time to vet bills. We have time to discuss them in committee and have hearings and have public hearings where people can come in. So I think that we've done, I think we've done a good job of being able to put something before the people that they're going to vote on. And they have a chance to vote yes or no as to whether they like those or not.
All right. Jay Don, same question.
Well, I disagree. I don't think the Republicans have done a very good job at all. And I'm going to recommend that my family vote against all 5 of them because it's just filled with Republican language that it defeats the very purpose that they say that they're doing. And, if you're going to put something on the ballot, have the input of the citizens before apparently they don't do that, but I think it's interesting that when the legislature was confronted with, I think a number of years ago, conceal and carry, the majority of the citizens voted not to have conceal and carry, but the legislature, Republican controlled, passed it anyway. Then the citizens go through the long, labor-intensive, very expensive process of initiative petition to put Medicaid expansion on the ballot. And what do the Republicans do? They don't want it. Then they're forced by the courts to do it. Well, it's the law. We got to do it. Well, yeah, then implement it fully and fairly. Right now, Missouri lags behind a lot of the states of enrolling. It gives the impression, whether it's true or not, gives the impression that the Missouri-controlled legislature, they didn't want it in the first place, and they're going to make sure it doesn't fully succeed by slowing the enrollment process, making it not work. We see it out of Washington, D.C., where our Congressman Luke DeMeyer, they vote against everything that would help the American people. And I think it's got to stop. It even goes down to we've got election deniers in the state legislatures in 27 different states, including Missouri. And I think that puts our democracy at stake. In my opinion, it's the number one issue in this race. Democracy's on the ballot.
Let's go to our next question. Jadon, we'll start with you. This comes from a reader. The Conservation Federation of Missouri is an organization of hunters, trappers, anglers, and foresters. Every year, they pass resolutions to improve outdoor life. A current one is to install solar panels on all new state-owned buildings. Doing so will reduce operating costs and help meet the Federation's goal of net zero emissions by 2050. If elected, would you support this resolution and explain your answer?
Yes, and I'm impressed. I've lived and worked in 6 different states in this country. I'm impressed with the state park system in Missouri. We've got some very beautiful state parks, and I've enjoyed visiting them. And I would encourage a lot of Missourians to get out and see their state parks and see the worthwhile. It's worth putting your tax dollars into keeping your state parks up and keeping them. I think that's neat to put solar panels on and everything. I think that's a good thing to do.
Dave, same question.
Well, this is the first that I've heard of that, but I think that anytime we have alternative sources of power that we can utilize, I think that is something that needs to be looked at. Again, I think a lot of what we do in the House and in the Senate is really look at it really goes back to money. It goes back to what's the cost going to be, what's the return on investment going to be, and if that return on investment is what you say, it's going to pay for itself by 2050. I need to look at that, but I don't think we can take anything off the table when it comes to energy and how we can save energy and how we can save taxpayers' money.
Okay. Next question. Dave, we'll go with you. From a reader, will you commit to fully funding public education for the duration of your term, including transportation, the Career Ladder program for educators, and maintaining funding for the raises that were given last year? And explain your answer.
Well, that's a very good question, and just this year it was an historic year in the House and the Senate for funding education. We spent $3.6 billion, this with a B, $billion in fully funding the foundation formula. We spent $328 million in fully funding the transportation needs for the city, for the state of Missouri. We spent $37.1 million on the career ladder, and we spent $21.8 million on making sure that our teachers have a starting salary of $38,000. So I think this year alone, the House and the Senate passed $5.1 billion with a B to add to education. So I think that we've done a good job of that. I think that the rhetoric that I hear from the other side of the aisle that we're not taking care of education. Education is a third of our budget. When I was first elected, our budget that year was like $32 billion. Our budget this year was $47 billion. A lot of that money was federal money that we got in, and I think that we've done a good job of trying to disperse that in ways that it's going to benefit the most people. And education was certainly a big topic. And if you were on the floor of the House and you were listening, that resonated very loudly.
All right. Jadon, same question.
Well, I would like to see the education foundation formula be fully funded. The Republicans state they fully fund it, but I can't see it myself. And think about this. Almost 1/4 of the schools in Missouri operate on a 4-day week. Now, I've been in education for quite a few years. I've never heard of any education expert say, you know what? It'd be just great if we would shorten the school year and let's have less classroom time for those students. And I think you're going to see all kinds of educational improvement. It sounds nonsense. The Republicans have been failing education for years in this state, and the facts prove it. 49th in the amount of money that the state of Missouri applies to education. 47th in what we do for early childhood education. 45th in the nation on average teacher salary. And when I taught school, we used to say, thank God for Mississippi. Now you know what we say? We are Mississippi. And I think it's atrocious. Missouri's got a lot going for it. We've got some of the nationally known research facilities, colleges, universities, and yet we have a cultural lag in our society because the ruling party in the Missouri legislature refused to fully fund education. Oh, they'll do a piecemeal. We gave you $5 billion this year. You ought to be satisfied with that. And then 4 or 5 years, nothing. And then they do this piecemeal every once in a while, and that doesn't cut it. Now, I'm sorry, but I've been an educator all my life. And I've listened to state legislatures in 5 different states do their budgets, and you know what? Education always comes out last.
Can I rebut that? I've been in the House for 4 years. Every year, every single year, we have fully funded the foundation formula. Every year. We haven't missed one in the 4 years that I've been there. This year, when we throw it, we've given as much more and more money than we've ever given before. And how you can't refute that we have not given money is hard for me to believe.
You know,
Okay, let's go to our next question.
Okay.
All right? Both of you have said you would fight to improve education. What would that look like? What sort of legislation would you introduce and support? Outside of the funding, all right? We've already had that discussion. Outside of that, what specifically would you champion to improve education? And we start with Jadon.
well, I worked in a state affiliate of the NEA about 20 years ago, and we were able to pass an education reform bill that included a lot of education reforms that I think improve the quality of education in that state. One of which is we make sure that that school boards are operating properly. That means 3 unexcused absence from a school board, they automatically lose their position on the board. Put a real citizen on there that's concerned about it, that's going to make every single meeting, or at least have an excuse for missing one. What we found out, and I think it's in every state, and maybe Dave will correct me on this, but DESE keeps a record of a lot of data and educational information, and school districts have to make an annual report. School districts should have a better management over their local budgets. A study was released several years ago where DESE accumulated all the surplus fund balances in all the school districts, 500 plus school districts, totaled over $3 billion. That's with a B. Those are education tax dollars that are not being used for education. And I think there ought to be an education reform bill to tell school boards what they have to do in order to meet the needs of education. Don't hold excessive amounts of taxpayers' dollars in fund balance. That'd be one thing I would do.
Okay. Dave, same question.
Well, I don't know what they're doing in other states. In really, all I'm concerned about is what's going on in the 60th district and what's going on in Jefferson City. And I can tell you that one thing that we're going to be doing here in Jefferson City, and that I hope that other communities throughout the state are looking at, are STEM schools. looking at magnet schools, looking at adding to the trades. Workforce development is something that is a big need that we've got in the state of Missouri. I know that when I was in high school, and I'm sure when Don was in high school as well, shop class was one of the classes that was taught. And so many of our schools now don't have that. But believe it or not, they're getting back to that. And we're seeing what the needs are and the shortfalls that we have in the workforce, and we're trying to address those. But the STEM school that we're looking at here in Jefferson City is really at the behest of our new school superintendent, Brian McGraw. Mr. McGraw came in here with a plethora of ideas of what he was going to be able to do. We look at what's going on over in Columbia with magnet schools. And with the magnet schools and how that and where they're placed in economically challenged areas, stimulates growth in that area, it stimulates the economy in that area. So I think that we can look at some best practices of what we have in many of our communities in the state of Missouri. But I think what we're doing here in Jefferson City and in the 60th district, I think we're trying to address those needs and to where we can see that not every child is meant to go to college. But many children can go to State Tech. Nichols Career Center has got some great programs over there. So I think we're doing a pretty good job here.
All right. Next question, we'll start with Dave. This comes from a reader. Do you believe that elections in Cole County, which encompasses House District 60, are administered fairly and are protected against cheating? Will you accept the results of the election after all the absentee and in-person votes have been counted?
I think voter integrity is something that has been a big concern for a lot of people since the 2020 election. I think that we can take a lot of pride in our Secretary of State and Jay Ashcroft and what he's been able to do. I think we can also take pride in what Steve Kurtzmeyer has done here in Cole County. I think we have ballot voting here in Cole County. We address those that have disabilities, so they're giving them the chance that they can vote. With the voter ID that we had was passed in this last session, that was something that I think that a lot of people on the other side of the aisle didn't like. They thought it was going to disenfranchise a lot of the voters. I think Secretary Ashcroft has made it very clear that those voter IDs can be made very simple. And if you don't want to get one, I mean, if you got a passport, if you got a driver's license, a non-driver's license, those are going to be able to be used to vote. If you don't have one, you can cast a provisional ballot. So I think we set up our voting for success. And I think here in Cole County, and especially in the 60th district, I feel confident in our voting system. The testing of the machines before and after, doing that before the election and making sure that they're all operating and functioning properly. So I think that we can feel very proud in the 60th district as to how that's being done.
All right. Jay Don, same question.
Well, I agree with Dave. I think that the local is doing a very good job in that respect. However, even though Ashcroft has said that the election was secure, fair, and everything, and Dave agrees that the local person here on site does everything, and I agree, does a good job. Still, the Republicans wanted to put a voter suppression bill, and they passed it over the objections of a lot of people. And to me, that just shows what they're trying to do is to restrict the votes. They don't want some people to vote. The voter suppression bill disenfranchised about 250,000 Missourians. Many of those who don't have the ability to drive a car because they're old and they've given up their driver's license, or they're in the nursing home or whatever, college students. There's just a lot of instances where you can, and there's no need for it. Voting ought to be easy, and it ought to be very easy thing to do. And again, it is a Republican solution to a problem that doesn't even exist.
All right. Another question from reader regarding elections. We'll start with Jay Don. Do you think state legislatures should have the power to select the official electors in presidential elections, regardless of the popular vote in the state?
It's almost laughable, isn't it? I'm sure the Republicans would like to do that, but No, I think state legislatures should stay out of local school board policy making. I think it's been my experience watching state legislatures in 6 different states. There's a good reason why state legislatures don't pass laws to mandate what should be taught in schools. And state legislatures don't make laws to tell county auditors or county people how to run their county, or pass laws to tell the city what they can do and what they can't do. You know, cities sometimes I think the city of St. Louis or Kansas City wanted to raise the minimum wage. Well, the MAGA Republicans in the Missouri legislature went berserk. You know, they wanted to, no, you can't do that. You can't raise the minimum wage in St. Louis or Kansas City. Now they got something on the ballot. They want to tell Kansas City how to run their police department or what not to run their police department. Again, it's just overreach, in my opinion. Let the local city run the city. Let the local school boards run the school board. That's what they were elected for. They're close to the issue. That's my opinion.
Dave, same
I
question.
think you need to repeat the question again.
Sure. Do you think state legislatures should have the power to select the official electors in presidential elections regardless of the popular vote in the state?
That's what I thought. That's what I thought your question was. The Electoral College was set up for a very good reason, for equality, to make sure that every state had an equal voice and an equal in government, not based on what the population was. And I think that the movement that's afoot now of trying to eliminate the Electoral College, I think, is a dangerous path for us to go down. I think what we've been able to do in the House is we try to look at local control as much as we can, in trying to make less government, and not have that government overreach, as my opponent is saying. I think what we're trying to make the best decisions we can, and there's a lot of work that goes into legislation, and a lot of thought that goes into legislation. It's not just done just by one party, but it's by bipartisan efforts to try and try to make the best decisions for all Missourians.
Okay. Next question.
I'd like to respond to that. Well, go ahead. I'll reserve it later.
Okay. Let's go to our next question, then we'll start with Dave. This comes from a reader. Do you acknowledge that Joe Biden won the 2020 election and is the duly elected president?
He's sitting in office, and the electorate, what I believe or whether I don't believe as to whether the election was stolen, as many Republicans are saying. I think that the voters and the count was in there. The vote was certified in the state of Missouri. I can't talk to what's going on in other states. What I can talk about is what's going on in the state of Missouri, and I know what the results of that election were in the state of Missouri and what the election results were in the 60th district. I think that's what I've got to be concerned about. I think as a legislator, I got to be concerned about my district. I got to be concerned about the 38,000 people plus that I represent, and make sure that their voice is heard. And the concerns that they've got, if they want to share those with me, those are something that I take to heart. But getting involved in national politics, that's not something that I think that as legislators, I don't think that we're called to do. If they ask our opinion, I think we certainly can give it. But I think what our job as legislators doing is to represent those people that elected us.
All right. J. Don, same question.
Well, I think it's interesting with his response. He does, as a lot of the MAGA Republicans, interject his opinions, what he thinks and stuff to other states. I have a copy of a letter that he signed where he objects to the possible outcome of 5 different states. Arizona, I won't go through the litany. You know what they are. The MAGAs are all concerned about the election. And he is, what he just said is not what he does. And it's typical of Republicans. They say one thing and do another. So you just have to watch what they do, not what they say.
Do you want to respond?
Well, I sure like to see that letter.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah, I sure like to see that letter.
Yeah. And your
that's,
signature's on it.
Well, Not to my recollection.
Hill, Representative Hill, you signed Representative Hill's letter, and he sent it to Senator Blunt.
Okay.
You remember it now?
I have no comment on that.
No, I wouldn't think you would.
Okay, let's
But
go to our
I'm not
next.
going, I really, Gary, I don't want to get in, I thought we had talked about this in the previous time that we had, as far as attacks on each other. We came here to answer questions. We didn't come here to attack each other. And that's not the way that I operate. And I'm not going to attack my opponent, and I don't appreciate him attacking me.
Well, then don't say the truth then. Don't say, I stay out of politics in other states, because you do.
Gentlemen, as we discussed before, the comments are going to be addressed to me, not to each other.
Oh, okay.
And I will say, you have an opportunity to refute. They don't need to be personal attacks, but there is a level of accountability that each of you need to have to your voters. And so we're gonna jump to a different topic, all right?
Okay.
How should Missouri address its crumbling infrastructure? So we're gonna start with Jadon.
Okay. Well, I think a good start was to add to the fuel tax. My opponent voted against it. What happens in a lot of states is that they use the fuel tax to support infrastructure, the roads, the bridges. Missouri has almost twice the number of roads and bridges that a lot of states have, and yet we have the lowest, or one of the lowest, gas tax in the country. And even though that the gas tax was increased on a graduated schedule, we'll still be one of the lowest in the country. So we've kicked the can down the road too many times, and now our roads and bridges are crumbling and they are in need of repair and replacement. I don't have to tell you what the surveys have shown, that the civil engineers have given a very low grade to the roads and bridges in Missouri.
Dave, same question.
Well, to correct Don, I did vote yes on the fuel tax. I did that mainly because of the infrastructure that we have, and I said in my infrastructure is one of the tenets of my campaign, and have been so for the last 4 years. I think what we've been, and I think that for a long time, as Don said, we did kick the can down the road and trying to look at what we're going to do with I-70. My wife and I, we drive I-70 to go to see our daughter in Kansas City, and there are places on I-70 that you can't pass because it's just not safe. When I served on Campo, when I was with the city council here, we had a man that brought a map in that showed the entire United States and showed how everything funnels down to I-70 and goes across the state, and then it spreads out once it gets across on both sides. So the money that we got with all the federal money that we got in this last session, we dedicated a lot of that money to the infrastructure and to getting bridges and getting roads repaired. And now as you drive across Missouri, you're going to find that a lot of those roads are a lot better than what they have been before. We had years and years and years of neglect that have gone into it. It's not something that's going to be fixed overnight. But I think that the legislature and the Senate, I think that we're concerned about that, and I think we're addressing that. I think that Director McKenna is doing his best with the funds that he's got. So I think that we're going to see improvements, but like I said, it's not going to happen overnight.
All right. Let's go to our next question. Dave, this will come to you. When it comes to the Second Amendment, what limits, if any, would you place on gun rights? Explain
None.
your answer.
I think the Second Amendment is the Second Amendment for a reason. Our forefathers, when they wrote the Constitution, the First Amendment was very important to them, the freedom of speech. And I think the Second Amendment was equally as important, that your right to be able to bear arms is a right that you have as an American. For us to try and look at ways that we can take guns away from our citizens, I think is wrong in every level. And we need to look at a lot of things that go into the Second Amendment and why it was put in place. With the SAPA Act that we passed 2 years ago, we did that because for fear that the federal government was going to come in and was going to take our weapons, and we needed to be able to protect those. It's not the weapons that are killing people. I mean, it's the person behind that that's doing that. And a lot of those issues that we're looking at go back to what we talked about earlier with mental health. So I think our Second Amendment is tenet to our foundation, and for us to mess with that is disaster.
All right. Jadon, same question.
Well, I have a respect for the Second Amendment, and I think most people do, but with those rights come responsibility. And I think most people, I'm a former member of the NRA, and most people that I know that hunt and everything, they make sure that they're responsible gun owners and they follow gun safety laws and rules. They keep, we should have some laws in place. I differ with my opponent. I think there should be some rules and regulations. If you're it should be a privilege to own a gun, and you should be responsible to make sure that you protect that gun, have it locked up and secured and everything. There are just too many shootings that are going on right now, and we've got to lessen the access to guns. So put in place some common sense gun safety laws, background checks, keep guns out of the hands of people that would be a harm to themselves or to other people. I don't see the Second Amendment so sacred that you're going to say, well, the Second Amendment is more valuable than the lives of those children in Uvalde, or the Second Amendment rights are more precious than the lives of people in a supermarket or a grocery store or a post office. Now, a lot of people are afraid. They tell me that they don't feel comfortable. If people can go to a supermarket and get shot and killed, which they're doing every day in many parts of the United States. So there should be some rules. You do that when you drive a car. You have to have a license to drive a car. You have to be educated, have driver's tests. Do the same thing for guns. Have the same kind of responsibility built in.
Okay, let's go to our next question. Start with Jadon. In light of the overturning of Roe versus Wade by the Supreme Court, what laws would you support as a legislator regarding abortion?
Well, I would say that it should be codified into law that every woman has a right to consult with her doctor and make her own health care decisions. And you can't have some white guy in the legislature telling you, no, you can't do that because of this and this. Get rid of all those laws that they're preventing women from getting the health care that they need. It's a health care issue. There was a story just out of St. Louis where this young lady had to carry a child and that died in the womb, and she was then susceptible to a threat to her life. But because the way the laws are written by the Missouri legislature, the doctors were afraid to give her the medical care that she needed to either save her life or the baby's or both. I would say codify the legal right for women for access to abortion the way it was before it was taken away.
Dave, same question.
I think that first off, I think protecting the unborn is something that I take very seriously, and I've been a big supporter of that for the entire time, for my entire life, but certainly for all the time that I've been in the House. I think that with the overturning of Roe versus Wade and really putting it back on the states and having the states being able to decide what's right for them, really goes back to the 10th Amendment. And the 10th Amendment really is about states' rights. Washington, D.C. seems to think that we work for them. Actually, they work for us. And for a state, and especially in the state of Missouri, we have the strongest abortion laws in the entire, almost the strongest in the entire state, in the entire country. And I think it's incumbent upon us, and especially upon me, to be able to do whatever I can to protect the life of the unborn, and I'll continue to do that as long as I'm elected. And that's really what my constituents that I talk with. One of the things that I've been able to do when I've been in the House was I send out a survey every year. In the first year that I sent out surveys, I only had like 80 people that responded. So in my column that I do in your newspaper, I told my constituents, I really can't serve you if I don't hear what you're saying. And on each survey that I've sent out since then, that's one of the questions that's on there. And overwhelmingly, the people that respond to that survey are saying that they want the same thing that I do. They want to protect the life of the unborn. As long as I'm there, that's what I plan on doing.
Okay, so to clarify a question for you though, so what laws would you support regarding abortion, any beyond where we are right now?
Well, I think that the way the law is set up now, an abortion can be done if it's going to endanger the life of the mother, and I think that's a decision that can be made between the doctor, and the doctor should sign off on that. And even still, the way the law is set now, that can be problematic for the doctor. So I think that the way the law is in protecting the life of the unborn, I think we're doing the best we can with what we got.
Okay. Next question, this comes from a reader. Would you support, and we'll start with Dave, would you support a popular vote to determine if abortion rights should be returned to Missouri women?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
The question is, so if there were a popular vote on the ballot,
So if you're saying if they would go through the initiative petition and they would put that on there.
Yeah.
I think that whatever in the initiative petition process, and I think I talked about this earlier, that when we can garner signatures from 450,000 people to put something on the ballot to change our Constitution. I think that's very problematic to begin with because it's something that needs to be done very thoughtfully. But I think that if that's done, then I think that if they change the Constitution, we have no choice. But I would not be in favor of that.
Same question, Jadon.
Say it again.
Would you support a popular vote to determine if abortion rights should be returned to Missouri women?
Yes, I would, because I think, I could be wrong, but Missouri's a red state, Republican, but enough Missourians cared enough to sign the initiative petition to not allow conceal and carry. And enough Missourians in a red state, Republican-controlled Missouri, enough citizens cared enough to vote for Medicaid expansion. And so I think if you put it on the ballot and let all Missourians vote on that, I think enough of them will care enough that they'll take it over. They will carry it over, they will make it legal, I think.
Okay. All right, so we're at the spot where we're going to do our closing statements. All right, so we're going to start with Jadon.
Again, thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my views. As I said earlier, am I limited to 2 minutes again?
1 minute.
1 minute.
Yep.
Okay, I'll try to speed it up. The reason I ran is because I'm as a student of history and a former history teacher, I think our democracy is in danger. If the 300 plus election deniers get elected to their office this election, in just half of the states of the country, 27, I think that will start the doom of our democracy. I would hope that the voters would give me an opportunity to go to the legislature and try to turn back and remediate some of the damage that the Republicans have done in these areas. Thank you very much.
Dave?
Thank you for letting us be here today. I tell you, my wife Leah and I have lived in Jefferson City for 35 years. Both of my children graduated from Jefferson City High School. I think if you look at my voting record over the last 4 years that I've been there, I've only voted president 5 times, and the reason I voted president on those times was because the bills had so many amendments to them that I couldn't justify voting yes or no. But I think what I've been able to do in the last 4 years that I've been in the legislature is to represent the people of the 60th district the best that I can in voting the way that they do. Being able to go on my computer and look at how people vote on certain issues and being able to make decisions that represent them. I've got some unfinished business. There are a lot of things that I want to do in the next 2 years in the House, and I really would ask for your support and your vote on November the 8th.
All right. So on behalf of the News Tribune, I want to thank you both for participating in this forum. And again, I'd like to thank the city for the use of this facility and helping us live stream it. As I mentioned in the previous forum, in addition to stories about this forum in tomorrow's paper, we'll have a variety of other means by which you can become more informed about this race. We'll be asking candidates questions that we didn't get to tonight, and those answers will appear in upcoming issues of the News Tribune. You can still submit questions to the candidates by sending us an email at vote@newstribune.com. Our society is served best by an informed and active electorate. I would encourage you who are listening to take advantage of these resources and then get out and vote on November 8th. Good night.